Hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel, iTalki Teacher Ryan. Today I'm going to be talking about whether or not non-native speakers should be teachers on iTalki. I'll be giving you a student's and a teacher's perspective throughout this video. And I hope that this will help you whether you are a non-native English speaker or a native English speaker and kind of wanting to know the differences as a teacher or a student. So let's get started. First, it should be noted that the term native speaker or non-native speaker right from the get-go gets a bad rep for a number of reasons. First of all, it's quite difficult to decide what a native speaker is, especially for people who grow up in different environments where there are many languages being spoken, 3 or 4 languages, multilingual environments. It's difficult in this situation to decide what is your L1 or L2, or if all of them are your L1s at the same time. Secondly, we've become quite selective in determining the rank and hierarchy of native speakerism. So, for example, people from certain countries are considered to have dialects that are, I suppose, more desirable in this English teaching industry. And I'm sure it's the same in other languages as well. Whereas other dialects are kind of lower on the food chain. So for that reason, native speakerism has become a little bit of a taboo subject. However, today I'm going to be using this term because I know that a lot of you are familiar with this term, so for the sake of efficiency, and also because this is the term that is actually used on iTalki while students are searching for a potential teacher. So let's have a look. If I head over here to iTalki, I go up to the Find Teacher tab over here, head on down here, and imagine I'm looking for an English teacher, so I'll apply that right there. Perfect. So right from the get-go, we see British, South African. Now we could click on the native speaker tab, and if we do that, we limit it to just under 5,000 teachers. Wow, we really have a lot of teachers on here now. And you kind of get an idea just by looking at the flags. We have a lot of British, American, South African people right here. In fact, if I go up to where they're from, we have the most popular, right? So United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, South Africa, Ireland, and New Zealand. These are the popular countries and regions. So in terms of the parameters of the platform itself, this is what native speaker, or at least the idea of native speaker really is. People who speak English from a very young age who are from these set countries, right? It's good to know that in reality, there are native English speakers or L1 English speakers from all around the world, all different environments. But being realistic, on the platform, a lot of students as well are looking for teachers who are from these countries for a number of reasons. And I'll go into those reasons in just a moment. But first, I want to give you my perspective. Could non-native speakers be teachers on iTalki? 100% yes. And in fact, some of these teachers have been much better than my native speaking teachers. Yeah. So there are a number of reasons why these teachers could be just as good or even better than native speakers. First of all, they have learned a language. So they automatically know the experience of learning a language. They have at some point likely developed their own strategies in learning a language. And this could be passed on to you and could give you great motivation. And that's the second reason right there. A lot of these teachers are highly motivated as well. They have to work even harder than a lot of native English speakers due to the fact that they're not from a country where English is prominent, the dominant language. So a lot of them have to fight tooth and nail just to be able to get their students and to keep them as well. And another reason is probably that a lot of them are better versed in terms of the differences between different kinds of English and what is acceptable and not acceptable. Now you would think a native speaker would probably know the ABCs of grammar. However, I've spoken about in different videos before how Americans might not know different British grammatical structures or British lingo, and vice versa as well, right? A lot of non-native speakers come from environments where they get a huge variety of media from the West. And it's not just from America, it's also from Britain and other English-speaking countries. And due to that fact, they're able to actually retain a larger variety of words overall. And this could be very useful for you as a speaker. Now, a native English speaker, just like myself, might have a great understanding of Australian lingo and British lingo and Irish lingo, South African, Indian lingo as well. However, the difference is that non-native speakers may have a greater sensitivity to listening and reading for these specific differences and being able to critically analyze these texts to find these differences as well. Finally, due to the political and economic landscape and the fact that a lot of non-native speakers are from countries that are, well, probably not within the Anglo-American domain, some of them may actually be familiar with some of the things that students are trying to pursue. For example, a lot of my students they take classes with me because they're interested in coming to Canada, immigrating to Canada. However, a non-native English teacher may have much more intellect on what it takes to immigrate to Canada and the actual experience of immigrating to Canada than I do, because I never had to immigrate to Canada, right? So even in terms of employment, in terms of immigration and these other topics right here, non-native speaking teachers may have a massive advantage over me, for instance. Now, let's talk about the other perspective, the student's perspective. And I'll be brutally honest with you here. I'm going to tell you about my perspective as a student and also my students' perspectives, which I have heard time and time again throughout my experience on iTalki. So first of all, for me as a student, I have actually taken classes with non-native speakers before. They've been fantastic. They've been, in fact, probably more patient in certain ways. One reason why I began doing this is, number one, because usually it's cheaper. The classes don't cost as much money. Another reason is because, as I said before, they kind of understand my struggle. One of the difficulties with taking classes with a non-native English teacher would probably be that some of these teachers come from environments which treat language learning as a very strict activity, right? There's a lot of focus on form, and for me, that's just not my style, neither as a learner nor as a student, right? So constant interruptions and making corrections and no flow in the conversation, that's not really my vibe. So if that's what you're looking for, certain people, certain non-native speakers could actually be detrimental to that growth because they could be a little bit too critical. However, the same could be said in all fairness about a native speaker as well. Because as I said, there are a lot of native speaking teachers who have never actually learned the language. So they don't know entirely what goes into the experience in terms of confidence, in terms of fluency, in terms of where and what to correct and when to correct things, right? And for this reason, they could be overly prescriptive with their corrections as well, right? So does this depend on whether you're a native or non-native speaker, or does it just depend on your personality and style as a teacher? It's really hard to say, and from my experience, I would kind of lean towards the personality side. Little costume change. Great, so maybe you're wondering just how common it is for non-native speakers to teach a language on iTalki. Well, let's have a look right now. So let's imagine we go to show more and we go to a few other countries where they speak English. Jamaica, we head on over to India. Let's see how that compares. Okay, so now we have 200 more right there, right? So if we're looking for English speakers of other varieties, on iTalki, supposed less popular varieties, we do see less teachers. However, there is a sizable amount. So you could kind of go through here. have a look at, for example, the Bahamas right there. The first thing that I would like to do is to see just how common it is for non-native speakers to teach on iTalki. So let's head on over here and pretend that I'm looking for English lessons right here. All right, great. So we see that there are 7,777 teachers, 7777. Okay, great. So let's click on here and let's look at what iTalki at least considers the most common, the most popular native speaker teachers, the most popular countries or regions. All right, so we could go to the United States, UK, Canada, Australia, South Africa, Ireland, New Zealand. So these are not all of the countries where they speak English growing up, clearly. However, these are the countries that are considered the most popular, and many students on iTalki deem these people to actually be native speakers. So for the sake of this experiment, we'll just see what happens here. So I click on that, and now we're down to 4,374, right? So we go down about 3,300, which means that the remainder of these teachers are actually from other countries. I'm sorry, there's one thing that I forgot to do. I forgot to actually click the native speaker tab. So now we're able to see the updated number, which is 4,252 teachers who are from these popular English speaking countries and who declare themselves native speakers as well. Now let's have a look at how the teacher type differs in this area. So we could go over here to professional teachers, and we're down to 2,400. So I suppose that would mean that the remainder are actually community tutors and stuff, 1,800. Great. So that kind of gives you an idea of the disparity, right? But let's just look in general, just in total, the kind of split between professional teachers and native and community tutors for non-native speakers. Okay, cool. So we could go over here to both stuff. So again, 7777, and then we could head over to a teacher type. So now we're going to professional teachers. 3636, cool. So we see that about half, a little bit less than half, are professional teachers, right? So it's a little bit of a difference from native speakers versus just the overall selection of English teachers on iTalki. And that's important because there might be a assumption that native speakers are more professional, or they tend to be professional more so than non-native speakers. But of course we could see that there would be non-native speaker professional teachers on here as well. So let's have a look at the difference in terms of price now, because this could really interest some people. Imagine I'm looking for an English teacher. Let's have a look at the price range here. So this gives you an idea of what the kind of range is over here. Yeah. However, if I'm looking for a native speaker, let's see how this changes. Okay, not too much. How about if I'm looking from these, common areas, these popular areas? From first glance, it doesn't look like there's that much of a difference, right? So I think this is important to see as well, that it won't be that much of a price difference for non-native teachers. For me as a student, I like to have a good mix between native speaking teachers and non-native speaking teachers. And at the end of the day, it really depends on their personality and their style as teachers. Very good, and there you have it, folks. That is my take on if non-native speakers could be English teachers on iTalki. I'd like to hear from you all. What are your thoughts? Have you taken any classes with non-native speaking teachers? Do you have any suggestions? Recommendations of particular profiles, teachers that you would recommend? Are there any things that you have noticed between learning with native speaker teachers and non-native speaker teachers? And let me know what your views are of this concept in general, as I know that it does remain quite controversial in our field. So thank you. I hope that was informative, and I'll see you next time. Keep smiling.